If you're dreaming of a trip to the beautiful Greek island of Paros, then this travel guide will cover the practical information you need to plan your trip. This is based on our own 7-day trip to Paros, which I'll link at the end of this video in case you're looking for ideas for how to spend your time on the island. The peak tourist season on Paros is July and August, and to a slightly lesser extent June and September. The weather during high season is dry and sunny, the sea temperature is warm and the beaches are bustling with activity. Restaurants, bars and attractions will be open and public transport will be running at full schedule. Crowds and prices will be higher though. We personally prefer to travel to locations like Paros in June or September, when you hit that sweet spot for great weather and lively atmosphere, with everything running at or close to full capacity, but the crowds and prices are not at their highest. For a more laid-back experience, you could consider visiting during May or October, although do know that the tourist season on Paros is a little shorter than Santorini and Mykonos. You'll have more space to explore the island without the crowds, and prices are typically lower during this time. But the further out of high season you go, the more of a risk you take on the weather being mixed and temperatures being too cool to swim. So think carefully about how much time you plan to spend at beaches when picking your time of year. Some do visit Paros during the off-season winter months, which will give you a very different experience. The weather will be colder and wetter, so definitely not ideal for a beach holiday, although the island will be much quieter and accommodation cheaper. Many restaurants, shops and hotels could be closed for the season, especially outside of the main town of Paros. If you've ever visited Paros or another Greek island during the winter, then I'm curious to hear more about what it's like, so please do share your experience in the comments. Based on researching places to stay for our own trip to Paros, here are a few options you could consider. The two most popular areas to stay are Naoussa and Paros. Both are great for dining, nightlife, shopping and sightseeing, and are accessible by public transport, especially in the summer. Paros, which is the island's main town and port, is the most convenient option for ferry connections to other islands and for exploring Paros without a car outside of the summer months. If you visit during the peak season, then Naoussa will be very busy, particularly in the evening. We found the crowds were manageable in September, although the area around the lively harbour did get pretty packed at night. It's all down to personal preference though. If you're looking for something lively, you might love Naoussa in the summer, but find it too quiet as the season slows down. Whereas if you prefer somewhere quieter, then you might not enjoy Naoussa in the summer, but like it in October. Both Paros and Naoussa do have their own beaches, although we didn't think they were the best we experienced on the island. We preferred Krios Beach in Paros to Peperi on Naoussa. However, Naoussa is better placed if you're looking to visit beaches like the unusual Kolymbithres or the popular Santa Maria. Both Paros and Naoussa offer that quintessential Greek experience of wandering through charming narrow streets, lined with pretty white buildings and vibrant flowers that so many of us picture when thinking of Greece. Naoussa did feel more luxurious than Paros, although not quite at the level of Santorini or Mykonos. Naoussa is often said to be the more beautiful of the two, and while I would agree with this, Paros is absolutely lovely as well. And while the north-facing Naoussa may be more picturesque, Paros faces west, so you get the most spectacular sunset views. Ultimately, the choice does come down to personal preferences and the time of year, but I don't think you can go wrong with either Naoussa or Paros. If you're visiting during the summer and are looking for a beach location that's more low-key than Paros or Naoussa, then you could consider Aliki on the south coast or Drios or Piso Levardi on the east. We didn't visit Drios or Aliki ourselves, but Piso Levardi was a lovely little fishing village with a small harbour, beach and several seafood cafes and tavernas by the water. There's a small beach by the harbour where you can sit and watch the boats, plus you have your pick of several other nearby beaches, including our favourite beach of the trip, Golden Beach, which is just a short car or bus ride away. There are so many beaches to choose from on Paros, each one offering a different atmosphere, setting and level of amenities, so you should research individual beaches in advance to find out which ones are right for you. You can see the beaches we visited in more detail over on our Paros itinerary video, so for this guide I'll cover off a few general things we thought it would be helpful to know when visiting the beaches on Paros. If you're planning to visit a popular beach during July or August, try to get to the beach early to secure a good spot. Some places do allow you to book lounges in advance, although we never did this ourselves. The cost of renting a sunbed on Paros can vary massively depending on the beach, the time of the year, the bed type and the bed location, with that first row often being more expensive. In case there was any doubt though, all these beaches we are showing you are public, so you don't have to hire a sunbed if you don't want to. You can just throw a towel down anywhere for free. You'll also be able to find plenty of beaches without any beach bars at all if that's what you prefer. A really popular beach on Paros is Colimbathres, which is known for its weird rock formations. If you plan to visit both Colimbathres and Paros Park or Monastery Beach in one day, then you can buy a return ticket from the same company that runs boats from Naoussa, which can be used for either destination. So for example, we caught the boat out to Colimbathres first, then caught the second boat back from Paros Park using the same return ticket. As Colimbathres is one of the most visited beaches on Paros and there isn't much space in the small sandy coves, I really would recommend getting there as early as you can. We caught the very first boat of the day from Naoussa and were able to enjoy the beach without many people at all for a couple of hours before it got busy. Our itinerary video included an extended version of the popular Byzantine Road hike. This moderately challenging trail starts in the mountain village of Lefkes and leads you through the beautiful countryside, passing through traditional villages and treating you to breathtaking views of the Aegean Sea. The version of the hike we did was around 7 kilometers long and takes at least 4 or 5 hours to complete, potentially longer depending on how long you spend exploring the villages. The trail from Lefkes to Prodromos was well signposted, but I'll quickly walk you through our full route and then give you a few extra pieces of practical information. You can actually start the trail in Parikia if you want a much longer hike, but we started by catching the bus in the morning from Parikia bus terminal, which is just next to the ferry port, to Lefkes. Then, after exploring the beautiful village, we followed the 3.5 kilometer Byzantine Road. This is the oldest road on Paros and connects Lefkes with Prodromos. The Byzantine Road starts at the edge of the village around here, and this here is the Byzantine Road. If you want to finish the walk at Prodromos, then you can catch the bus back from here to Lefkes. However, if you have the energy to keep going, then you will be rewarded. The next village, Marmara, is around 15-minute walk away. Instead of following the road to Marmara, we took this footpath, which was a much more pleasant and safe way to go. Take a short walk through the village, look out for the windmill on your way, before continuing another 10 or 15 minutes onto Marpisa. At this point on the route, you'll be able to continue following the road or turn right up a dirt track. We turned right mainly because there would be less traffic. When you walk up the hill, make sure you stop and look back, as you'll have some lovely views of sugar cube houses dotted across the countryside. Spend some time leisurely exploring the lovely winding streets of Marpisa before heading on. The last 20 minutes of the walk down to Pisa Lavardi isn't the most exciting, to be honest, but once you're there you can relax at the beach or in one of the cafes, looking out over the harbour. When you're ready to leave, you can then catch a bus from the road which is set just behind the beach. Now for a few more quick tips for the trail. First, wear comfortable shoes, so no flip-flops. The hike is long and parts of the Byzantine Road are rocky and uneven. While the trail does take you downhill, there will be one steep uphill near the start. Bring plenty of water with you, as while you will pass through villages, there will be stretches of the trail with no opportunity to buy more water. Wear plenty of sun cream too, as there is no shade across the Byzantine Road. We also found it was pretty windy and exposed at times, so if you're wearing a hat, make sure it's secure. There isn't much in the way of public toilets on this trail. We only spotted a portaloo in Marpisa and toilets at the dock of Piso Lavardi, so if you don't fancy a scenic wee, then you could use this as an excuse to work in some cafe pit stops. If you're a first-time visitor to Paros, then you're very likely to visit Naoussa during your trip. During the summer, Naoussa is very busy at night. However, we found the village to be much calmer and quieter in the morning, so it's worth getting there early if you don't like crowds. As Naoussa is a really popular place, then if there are any restaurants you specifically want to go to, then if possible book in advance, especially if you're visiting during the peak summer months. If a restaurant doesn't take online reservations and you can't call ahead, you could either pop into the restaurant in person to book a day or two before, or chance your luck for a table after 9:30 p.m. However, you'll be able to find some great options without a reservation, and one of our favourite meals was walk-in only and was well worth the queue. When you are setting off for a restaurant's reservation, leave plenty of time to get there. We found it was so easy to get lost in those small winding streets, and Google Maps wasn't always accurate here. I would also ask your accommodation where the nearest supermarket is. We found not all of them showed up on Google Maps, and after spending our time walking 10 minutes to the shop each day, on our last day we stumbled across one that was conveniently just around the corner from our hotel. For exploring, wear comfortable shoes, as many of the streets are cobbled and there could be plenty of uphill walking. The currency used on Paros is the euro. Unlike trips we took to Greece several years ago where we would pay for everything in cash, on this recent trip to Paros we found that most shops, bars and restaurants accepted credit and debit cards. I would still suggest taking a small amount of cash with you, because it's still always good to have some on you for small purchases, or for any small businesses that could still be cash only. Plus, unexpected issues using your card can always occur. Visiting Paros without renting a car does have limitations, but in our experience, using buses was a convenient way to explore the island and did not leave us feeling like we'd missed out on anything. The buses were generally on time. During our trip we took several buses and they were only late once. These buses are more like comfy air-conditioned coaches that have luggage storage underneath if you need somewhere to stow your suitcase at no extra cost. You can check bus schedules in advance on the Paros bus website, which I'll link in the description below. The schedule does change over the year, with buses increasing in frequency over the summer, so wait until the timetable for your travel dates has been released before you finalise your plans. Alternatively, you can just check bus times at the Paros and Naoussa terminal kiosks once you arrive. Ticket prices vary by route and distance travelled, starting at just a couple of euros per ticket. You can buy your tickets either from the kiosks or from selected shops or supermarkets. You could buy tickets from the driver, although if you wait to buy them on the bus, it will cost you a little more. I think it's better to buy them beforehand if you can. You can also purchase as many tickets as you like ahead of time from the bus kiosks or the shops, and these can be used for any route on any day, as long as they are the correct value. Paros is connected to nearby islands and mainland Greece by regular ferry services. The main port is Paros, with daily connections to Athens and other islands such as Naxos, Santorini, Mykonos and Ios. This also gives you the opportunity to build your own island hopping itinerary. While most ferries are unlikely to sell out, for peace of mind, personally we usually prefer booking tickets in advance just before we go to Greece. Bear in mind though that ferries can be rescheduled, so always keep an eye on the ferry times. If you prefer not to book in advance, you can still use a website like Ferry Hopper to research your options and then purchase tickets at the ticket office. This will give you more flexibility as you won't have to commit to a specific ferry time. When planning your journey, consider possible disruptions like ferries being rescheduled, delayed, or even cancelled. If you need to catch a flight after your ferry, make sure you leave more time than you think you will need. You'll have several different ferry companies to choose from. While ultimately I would use departure and arrival time as the main deciding factor, we personally prefer the Blue Star ferries. They may be a bit slower, but they're cheaper and their large size means they're the most reliable, and they have plenty of outdoor seating, which in our opinion makes the journey much more enjoyable. While you can pay to select a seat, we just bought an economy ticket and found there was ample seating on the ferry deck. Finally, if you plan to have a car, then there are car ferries. However, if you're renting a car, then make sure you check in advance with the rental company whether you can take that car to another island, as most companies won't allow you to do this. Paros does have a small domestic airport that receives regular flights from Athens and Thessaloniki. Flights can be as short as 40 minutes from Athens and about an hour from Thessaloniki. If you're arriving into Greece at one of these airports, then I would allow about 2 to 3 hours connection time just to be safe. There is an airport bus that runs from the airport to Perikia several times a day. Depending on where you're staying, you could catch a bus onwards from there. If the timings of the bus don't work out for you, or you just want a quicker and easier option, then I would recommend pre-booking a taxi, especially if you're travelling during high season, as waits could be really long. We arranged a transfer through our accommodation, which cost €45 for 2 people to travel straight to Naoussa. To be honest, the prices I've seen quoted have been really varied, so I'm not sure how typical this price is. Paros is known for its strong summer winds, particularly during July and August. This is known as the Meltemi, which is a seasonal dry wind that blows across the Aegean Sea, particularly around the Cyclades Islands. This can make the sea choppy, which is another reason to consider booking one of the larger, slower ferries if you do plan to travel between the islands, as they are less likely to be delayed or cancelled due to weather, and the journey will be more pleasant if the sea is rough. In our experience in September, while Paros was windy at times, it was not windy every day, and fortunately the wind did not disrupt any of our plans. However, I would suggest packing layers, as we found on a couple of evenings that were particularly blustery, the temperature was significantly cooler than the other nights. This is especially noticeable when you've been out in the lovely warm sun all day. Even if it is windy during your visit, this doesn't need to spoil a beach day. Many of the beaches on Paros are in sheltered bays, so are quite protected. The summer Meltemi is a northerly wind, so beaches at the south of the island are less vulnerable. But even if you want to stay north, then beaches like Kolimbathres, Monasteri and Santa Maria are still fairly sheltered. If you've made it this far, then thank you. I'll link our 7-day itinerary here if you want some ideas for things to do on the island. I hope you have a great trip to Paros.